Good afternoon. So it's getting a bit on in the afternoon, so I'm sure you're starting to get a little bit restless. And I think the great news is we're seeing a lot of really common themes coming through all of the discussions today. So I'm going to try and avoid duplicating too much what you've already heard, and I'm going to mix up what I plan to say a little bit, which is kind of what you need to do when you're at the back end of the session. So I'm really excited to be here to talk about this nexus and this coming together of how 5G can really drive sustainable development. I think this is a really important opportunity for us, and one at Nokia that we take really seriously. I look after sustainability, and for me, sustainability isn't a function or an initiative. It's something that you embed in every single part of your organization. And for us, that starts with our purpose. Our purpose shows how, as a company, we see that our products and our services play a critical role in driving some of the biggest challenges that we face today as a society, whether that's stalled productivity, inclusive access to opportunity to healthcare, employment, as well as education, and of course why we're here today as well, talking about the pressure on the planet. What's clear is that we need to take a two-pronged approach to this problem as an industry. At Nokia, we think about this as maximizing our handprint and minimizing our footprint. Our industry has this unique capacity to be able to help other industries, societies, and individuals themselves to decarbonize. That's our handprint. GSMA research will say that that gives us an opportunity of up to 10 times greater than our own individual footprint. And that's really exciting, right? That's a great place to be and an exciting place to be. But it means we can't be complacent either. We still need and have a responsibility to manage our footprint in the most responsible way possible. So for us, we start with clear targets. Like many, we set science-based targets. We were the first vendor to do so. We restated them in 2021, where we will aim to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions by 50% across all scopes, scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions by 2030. In addition, we look for all opportunities that we have to be more efficient in our own operations. We target to purchase 100% renewable electricity across all our facilities by 2025. That may not sound like a lot, but when you're in more than 100 countries, that's a real challenge. In addition, we aim to be 95% circular by 2030. Now, what does that mean? How do we achieve those targets? Like some you've heard before, 93% of our own emissions are made up of the use of our products and solutions in use in our customer networks. This means we have to continually aim to reduce the emissions of those networks, breaking the back of, I think, what we've heard before, of this massive increase in capacity from a subsequent increase in energy usage and material usage. To do this, we've developed a range of chipsets that are 50 to 60% more efficient than the previous versions. We've pioneered new liquid cooling that improves the energy efficiency and reduces emissions of base stations by up to 80%. We've also introduced software like AVA energy efficiency solutions, which can be used which uses artificial intelligence to further reduce energy in 5G and multi-lender legacy networks by up to 20%. In addition, with fixed access technologies, we've looked at broadband to homes and businesses with reduced power consumption of 38% by 2000 and since 2007, while speeds have increased by a factor of 64 times. At the same time, we, of course, work closely with our supply chain and within our value chain, looking at how we can reduce emissions in manufacturing, in logistics, and in transportation. We encourage innovation in other sectors, like using sustainable aviation fuel for certain parts of our logistics to continue to drive down in logistics emissions. So what's clear is, even though our own operations may make up the smallest part of our footprint, we take our responsibilities really seriously. But we can't only look at what we do in our own operations. We can't afford to be that myopic. You may have heard us in Nokia say that there's no green without digital, and ultimately, what this is talking about is this really unique opportunity that we have to allow cities, industries, and even individuals to really fight climate change. It enables them to be safer, more sustainable, but there's still a long way to go. we estimate that only 30% of the world's economy is so far digitalized. This means that 70% is still more wasteful and less productive than it should or could be. And we've heard earlier today, the 5G-enabled use cases are going to play such a significant role also for the US in terms of the ambition and the climate targets that need to be met. So I think it's clear from all of the really inspiring use cases we've already heard today that connected digital solutions capitalizing on the latency of 5G networks enable different industries to monitor and manage their emissions, to control power consumption and materials, and of course to optimize and reduce their own carbon footprints. Now, I was planning to take you through 4 use cases to show this critical role, but I think you will A, recognize a lot of them, and are probably getting a bit sick of hearing about them. So I'm going to go really fast just because we're really proud of some of this work, but I'll try and actually repivot some of this discussion to something a little bit new that we haven't spent much time talking about. In agriculture, what's incredible is that research suggests that we actually produce enough food to feed the world. And for me, that was an incredible statistic because we know that there are massive problems at scale with hunger. But unfortunately, overproduction, overconsumption, and supply chain issues mean that we have huge amounts of waste. Up to 30 to 40% of food that's produced is wasted during production. That makes up to 8 to 10% of greenhouse gas emissions, a correlation that I myself had never drawn for a long time there. We've been working with partners on precision farming solutions, whether that's working with customers with rural farms in India or here in the US. We've been working with aero farms on vertical farming solutions. What we know is that they bring benefits. Bell Labs Consulting has estimated that if 15 to 25% of all farms adopted precision farming by 2030, it would lead to an increase of yields by as much as 300 million tons per year. It would save farming costs of up to $100 billion a year and reduce around 150 billion cubic meters. This is incredible, incredible impact at scale. And in manufacturing, we see the same. There was a reference earlier to a World Economic Forum Lighthouse Manufacturing Center. The second one is in Nokia. We're really proud of it. The Bell Labs research that we concluded at the end of last year suggests that we can see a 10 to 20% emissions reduction through the adoption of smart manufacturing. In our own Lighthouse factory in Oulu, we saw that happen in the offset of a 30% productivity improvement, 50% reduction in defects over 4 years, and a 50% reduction in time to market. And then we've talked a bit about sustainable cities already. We've talked about transportation and logistics, about smart monitoring of infrastructure and the ability that we have to hopefully reduce the amount of emissions associated to service and maintenance, doing them only when needed and preferably remotely. One thing we haven't talked so much about is that as much as we need to focus on climate mitigation, some of the effects of climate change are already here. We also need to talk about climate adaptation. Here we see the need to look at solutions, real-time solutions to monitor and detect forest fires, flood warnings, and to manage and protect our water and our air. Now, I can go into a lot of statistics, but I'm also a little bit worried that you're a bit full of statistics. But needless to say, this isn't an academic exercise. If we look globally, forest fires have destroyed the landmass of more than 5 times the size of Texas. The amount of money that we spend fighting those fires and the economic and environmental impact is meaningful. If we look just in the contiguous US, from a flood perspective, a study of over 700,000 commercial and residential properties concluded that it will cost businesses this year $26.8 billion in direct lost output and $23 billion in output due to downtime just this year. This is a social, environmental, and economic need to mitigate climate change, but also to manage what we see in front of us already with a significant increase in climate-related natural disaster. So I've jumped forward a bit. I plan to tell you about some of those wonderful things in a lot more detail. And at Nokia, we're really proud of the work that we do, working with Bell Labs, with our partners, and with our customers on these use cases. We've won a number of awards, and we're incredibly proud of them. So please don't and don't miss that opportunity to take that away. But I thought we'd maybe spend a bit more time on the things we haven't talked about today, at least that I haven't heard so much about. And that's the fact that despite all these really inspiring use cases, and I don't know about you, but I'm sold on the ability of connectivity and digitalization to solve some of these challenges. If you'd heard all of these discussions, you'd believe we'd already solved it, right? You'd think we'd already had this thing cracked and just needed to get going, but we haven't. Ultimately, we need to accelerate, but there are barriers. So I thought maybe I would change it up a bit and ad-lib and spend a little bit of time talking about the barriers. So the first thing we see is that there is a huge stall between use case, great ideas, even real-world solutions that have been tested and are producing really positive results, and productization and scale. In this stall, you can ask, why is it happening, right? We all have this burning platform. I think IPCC tells us we're running out of time. So why aren't we accelerating? And I think there's a couple of challenges. The first one is that a lot of these use cases are incredibly compelling by themselves, but economically are really hard to justify the broad-scale infrastructure rollout that's required. So a really interesting smart parking solution or waste management solution that can do a huge amount of environmental good isn't going to justify the infrastructure rollout requirements of broad-scale 5G networks. So what does this mean? It means we're in a catch-22. We have these incredible opportunities to be able to drive productivity, to be able to drive climate benefits and bridge the digital divide. Individually, these use cases may not add up to what's required to justify the rollout that we need, because they can't happen without them. But together, once you have a platform of connectivity and digitalization with appropriate latency, we can see that as a platform for innovation, for climate, and for social benefit as well as economic benefit. And I think we really need to think about how we make that happen. How do we overcome this funding gap and this stall from use case to productization? And the first thing I'll say is that we need to collaborate. I was actually surprised we haven't talked more about collaboration as we've been in this session today. Ultimately, if there was one company, one country, or one individual who could solve this problem, we wouldn't still be here talking about it. Ultimately, we need a collaboration between public and private sector, between industries that sometimes do not work together, to be able to find the right use cases and the right business case to be able to roll out broad-scale connectivity as a platform for mass climate and social change. I think what's interesting is that there's been some research, it should be coming out recently, soon, that would suggest that if we look at the companies and the industries that can most benefit from the power of technology, whether that's environmental benefit, productivity and benefit, they acknowledge themselves they genuinely don't have the in-house knowledge or the skills to be able to assess the opportunity that connectivity, digitalization, and all of the enhanced connective solutions can help them with. They're also not fully convinced of the business case. So we need to do a better job of being able to convince them of the business case, and we need help to look at this whole solution as a much more holistic problem to solve. The second thing I'd say about the power of collaboration is it's not limited to discussions like this one. I think this is a great opportunity and a great platform. I just came from New York Circular City Week last week, and it was an incredible opportunity to see industries coming together and discovering what you do with unusual partnerships. And unusual partnerships are at the key of collaboration. We saw a great example even from Nokia, where our liquid-cooled broadband solutions are really exciting from a climate perspective anyway. They reduce emissions by up to 80% for a base station. But from a circularity perspective, where it gets really interesting from an unusual partnership perspective, is working with one of our customers. We put one of these solutions in an apartment building. And it got really exciting because we were able to capture the waste heat from that base station in operation and use it to contribute to heating the building of the apartment building. Now, if we had stuck to our normal use case of driving energy-efficient base stations, which is, of course, incredibly important to our contribution. We never would have thought about that next step of how we can contribute to something bigger and how we can collaborate with unusual partners. Sometimes I think we need help looking at how we can bring these things together from where we are today. And then finally, the development of a sustainable ecosystem. So what do I mean by that? We need an ecosystem that encourages and provides a steady and predictable stream of low, mid, and high band spectrum to act as this platform for all of the different applications that are going to be coming in the subsequent years. We need careful management of regulation relating to mandates or to local manufacturing, for example, sourcing limitations and so on. We need stimulus that recognizes the positive impact of digitalization, driving faster development and productization at scale. So maybe I leave you with Einstein. He's a smart guy, right? We can't solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. The private sector absolutely has a role to play. We need to think big, we need to think creative, and above all, we need to do our part. And at least from Nokia's perspective, we're excited about how we can contribute, managing our own footprint responsibly, and also recognizing the profound impact that our products and solutions can play in solving some of the world's biggest challenges that we face today. We need to create an environment that is safe, drives lower prices, inclusive access to opportunity, healthcare, education and employment, and a greener, safer, more sustainable planet. We need to seize that opportunity, working together to move faster, and we need to do it now because time is running out. Climate change is moving much faster than we are. So thank you.